After only 3 weeks of being unemployed, I was offered a full-time remote job, which I started last week. I fully anticipated being out of work for up to a year in this tough job market. In this video, I want to share with you what I think helped get me noticed. Hi, I'm Nikki. Welcome to La Paz Bound. So I was laid off on October 9th, officially October 10th. I was in marketing and IT for a small 70-person company based out of state. I worked fully remote from Florida. When the company failed to produce a profit over the 3 years that I was there, I knew cuts were inevitable. They had done it before, a couple employees here and there. But with the promise of a buyout and the president of the company personally calling each IT member, including myself, to state that exciting things were happening soon, I held on, and so did my colleagues. Two of us are in our 50s, my boss was in his 60s, and we all knew how rough it was out there. So we clung to this job for as long as possible. My husband Don and I started making some smart financial decisions a year ago. Selling the expensive car, paying for the next car in cash, being more conservative with our 401k investments, getting Mexican residency as a possible early retirement option, and paying down almost all of our credit card debt. We were 3 months away from paying off over $60,000 of credit card debt when I got laid off. And when it happened, I went into full panic mode. I have been working all of my life. And with the exception of being laid off in the early 2000s as a result of Enron imploding the accounting firm that I worked for 5 years, I'd never been out of work. Back in the early 2000s, it was much easier to find work. And unlike this situation, back then I was in my late 20s and started job searching when I saw the rounds of layoffs happening. And thank goodness I did, because sure enough, I was laid off too. When I was laid off in October, I was given 12 weeks of severance in one lump sum. It amounted to just a little over $20,000 after taxes. I was also paid out for unused vacation time in my last paycheck. So I was sitting on about $25,000. With my husband still working and some careful and strategic planning, we were able to get by on his income without having to dip too much into my severance. The day after being laid off, I started the grueling process of filing for unemployment in Florida, hoping to qualify for the max weekly benefit of $275. I spent 4 days trying to navigate the Reconnect system, uploading and providing each piece of paperwork that they required, as well as entering detailed information about the required 5 jobs that I had to look for each week in order to receive benefits. Guess how much I received from unemployment? Zero. Nothing. About 3 weeks into the process, a determination was made that I didn't qualify for benefits because my former company paid me severance, and they count that as income for the next 12 weeks. In my opinion, one shouldn't have anything to do with the other. And it wasn't like that when we lived in Connecticut 12 years ago. You could receive unemployment even if you received severance. And Connecticut paid double what Florida pays each week. We know this from personal experience. So one of the first things that I did that I think helped get me noticed on LinkedIn was that I opened myself up to everything. Remote work, in-office work, hybrid work. I also opened myself up to part-time work, not just full-time opportunities. In addition, I put that I was willing to relocate. And I realized that not everyone can do that, but it certainly helped me because 3 weeks after being laid off, a recruiter in another state found me and contacted me asking if I would be interested in contract work. Now, I've only contracted once in my life, and it proved to be the right decision because after 9 months of contracting, I was hired on by the client that I was helping, and I remained an employee there for 7 years. When the recruiter asked for my resume, I tailored it to the job. I also had an online PowerPoint portfolio that I created in Canva that I was able to provide, as well as point them to the website that I created and maintained at my former job. I was also able to point them to all the LinkedIn posts that I had created at my previous employer, since I was the LinkedIn administrator. The client was able to see not only my marketing skills, but also my technical writing experience. While I was waiting for an interview for this potential contract position, I was applying to at least 2 to 3 jobs per day, tailoring my resume and experience to each job and sending cover letters to every company that I applied to. I got a lot of rejections. I also had a pre-screen interview where HR said she would forward my resume to the hiring manager, where I would have to come in for an additional 3 interviews. I never heard back from that job. I received an email from another company wanting me to fill out a questionnaire for another role. I got the rejection yesterday. But I did hear back from the recruiter for this year-long contract position. I had a Teams interview with the company, and I waited 3 days before being called and offered the role. I took this role for a few reasons. So number one being that it was the only real opportunity to come my way, and I didn't know how long it would take for another opportunity to come along in this job market. Second, it's a fully remote position. I wouldn't have to sit in Tampa traffic 5 days a week. And third, the hourly pay is only a 12% pay cut from what I was making at my former job. The other positions I was applying to were 50 to 60% pay cuts. Of course, there are downsides to contract work. There is no guarantee that this role will last a year, but there is potential for the role to be extended into 2027 if it does last. With contract work, you don't get the benefits like you do with being an employee. If I need to take time off, I won't get paid. But I can supplement those unpaid days with my severance. And while medical benefits are offered with the contract company, it's not as good as what I'll get with Don's company. I jumped onto his insurance, but it doesn't kick in until January 1st. So the key takeaway for how I think I got noticed on LinkedIn, besides changing my profile to open to work, is that I opened myself up to every work type so that I could be found more easily by out-of-state employers. I opened myself up to contract work and being able to travel for a job and even being able to relocate for the right opportunity. I didn't put any limitations on my LinkedIn profile, and I think it paid off. I am really hoping that this role lasts the full year and extends into 2027 as well. For now, it's income. Income to help pay off the remaining $19,000 owed on my credit card, and income to help build the emergency fund we need while we continue to live frugally in this tough economy. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments what worked for you in landing employment so we can support one another and get more talented people hired. Until next time, hasta luego, my friends.